Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the Air Raid Hour. My name is Steve Mathis. You can find me on Twitter at Judge Mathis, joined by my co-host Dave Tilton. You can find him on Twitter at Tilt Money, and also joined by Kendall Mursky. You can find him on Twitter at Mursky Kendall. Together, we are the Bills guys. This is the Air Raid Hour presented by the Cover One Sports Network. And Dave, listen, you popped in kind of late before the show started. I was telling you, I'm not well. So my plan today was to get home from work and to spend 3 hours in front of the television, my 75-inch beautiful new television, watching the combine and outlining our show for tonight. I didn't outline a damn thing because I was just so ingrained in the combine. And like, make fun of me all you want. Like, just hearing Peter Schrager and Charles Davis and Dale Jeremiah, give their insight on like what scouts are saying, what front office guys are saying, like, some of the guys who are the buzz of Indy, watching the guys run their 40s, do their vertical leaps, catch their passes, just hearing some of the background stories of some of these guys that maybe you would never have heard before. Just absolutely glued to the television. So I am not well. Thankfully, I'm uber prepared. And while my kids were taking a test today, I managed to make my defensive big board. So I got all the player names and everything. We're good. The work is done. The work is done. But John, how are we doing? Have we been watching this combine, keeping up with what's going on here today?
I've been kind of doing what you did, but late because I have to work. I've pretty much had work all day. I didn't have a chance to do any prep until after my day job work day. So I've been kind of keeping one eye on what's going on in the combine and doing some prep for the show tonight. But the other thing, what I also really like about the combine is not just hearing about what front offices are saying or whatever, but I also like hearing about the rumors for the guys actually already in the NFL, right? Free agent rumors, extension rumors, things like that. A lot of that stuff comes up combine week. And so that's cool too. You get a little bit of everything combine week. It's not just about these guys running around. You do get some nice little nuggets from some of the GMs and other front office staff.
Kendall, how about you? What are your initial thoughts on the combine? It's here. We get the interviews. My favorite part about yesterday was all of the guys talking about who had met and who had not met with the Bills yet. Yeah. I think, to me, like Chris Olave and Jahad Dotson were the two where we met with the Bills and we did extensive board work. Like, that was really like a crazy cue to me that the Buffalo Bills were really honing in on two guys who really popped today. Chris Olave might not be an option anymore after running that 4.26. But what are your thoughts on some of the things that we've seen so far through the first 2 days of the combine?
Yeah, happy it's finally here. Happy we're finally getting some answers on some of these measurables and things like that. Yesterday's so informative, just like finding out who the Bills are honing in on. And you can kind of tell, like, because they're looking at Olave and Dotson, you don't want to shut the door on the idea that the Bills aren't going to go wide receiver in the first round, just based on, where those guys stack up relative to everyone on the big board. And then seeing how they ran today, it's really wild how fast that second wide receiver group just ran. I don't know what they have in the water down there, what's going on, but everyone ran fast in that group. I can't wait to see what the official numbers are in that group.
Yeah, obviously the official numbers, but like the official numbers aren't going to change it that much. Like Chris Olave's 4.26 ain't going to turn into a 4.4. I think the biggest indicator of the validity of these 40 times might be on Sunday when Rich Eisen runs his, right? Like if Rich Eisen busts a career 40, maybe that's an indicator that that the field was a little fast there in Indy. Yeah. But
if he runs a 4.7, we know something's off.
And and I'll say this again and again because we get absolutely sort of enticed by these early round wide receivers, and for good reason. I mean, they're just so incredibly talented, but players always flock to where the money is. And we've seen over the past decade a transition in the National Football League. The running backs don't get paid no more, right? So you see these wide receivers, a lot of these wide receivers might have been running backs in years past and things of that nature. So you see players shift to where the money is, and where the money's at is at wide receiver and it's at edge rusher. And oh boy, do we have a fun conversation to talk about tonight when we get to edge rusher, because of some of the crazy uber talented guys who are there at that position in what I think is a relatively deep edge rusher class. But before we get to defense, which is going to be our show topic for today, defensive combine preview, let's start with the wide receivers in their 40s. Like I said, Garrett Wilson, did what he needed to do today. Jahad Dotson did what he needed to do. Chris Olave popped off the charts with that 4.26. Treylon Burks, I think, is an interesting one. I think he lost some money today. I think Treylon Burks is going to fall a little bit, 4.5, 40. I wasn't too impressed with his day at the combine. Obviously, it's the tape what speaks for itself, but when you go and watch the tape, this is a guy who takes plays off, isn't the most crisp route runner in the world. Is he a playmaker with the ball in his hands? He sure as heck is, but there are some other receivers in this class who are 10 times better actual receivers than Treylon Burks. Kelvin Austin, I think, made himself some money today with his 4.32. Sky Moore made himself some money. Christian Watson with a 4.28. Are you kidding me? George Pickens made himself some money with a 4.4. Khalil Shakir with a 4.35. Alec Pierce with a 4.33. Like, you're seeing some dudes. Valus Jones, I think, what was it, a 4.32? Made himself some money today. I think the only 40 that stuck out in a bad way today was David Bell running a 4.6, but that's just not who he is. So I still like David Bell, and if David Bell is sitting there in the third round because he fell because of his 40 time, that's something you're the Buffalo Bills you might want to consider. But Kendall, I'll start with you. Your guy Wendell 4.38. What were your thoughts on some of the wide receivers today?
Yeah, Wandale definitely lived up. He got sub 4.4, which is what you would expect when you watch his tape, but I think he'll really shine in the agility drills, stuff like that. But those wide receivers, like, everyone was going fast. Like you said, the two that are probably going to be talked about the most in a negative fashion, it's going to be Burks and it's going to be Bell. But both of them, they play a different kind of game where it's not completely predicated on that straight line speed. Burks, in a different way, he does kind of flex that straight line speed in his game tape, but he's got so many different ways that he can win where it doesn't necessarily matter so much. But I think it's the overall picture where he didn't really run a whole lot of routes in college. It was a lot of, I don't want to say a lot of gimmicky stuff, but it was a limited route tree. And then when you throw this on top of it, where the hype was, it didn't meet the hype. So I think, like you said, he definitely lost some money today. But at the end of the day, the top end of this wide receiver group is going to depend so much on what the team wants and the flavor of wide receiver that they want, probably more so than who's the best one out of the bunch, because I think the best one out of the bunch it depends on the team need, because wide receiver rooms are built like a basketball team. You want your shifty point guard, you want your big jump ball rebounder kind of guy. You want different flavors in that room. So I don't know if it necessarily dictates where he goes so much relative to the other wide receivers.
The depth in this class is insane. Alec Pierce ran a 4.33, had a 40-inch vertical, right? He's not changing on my board. He's still my 15th best receiver. Like, 15.
He tested well in everything he did today.
Everything.
15th. Really, his RAS is going to be off the charts. But I still have guys like Shakir and Wendell Robinson ahead of him. Guys like George Pickens, John Mechie. This wide receiver class is absolutely loaded. Dave, what were your thoughts on the way that some of these receivers carried themselves today, and who made some money?
Well, let me just hit on Burks really quick, because this is the note I had on him before today. So kind of like played out, or like in a way was what I was looking for. I said size speed combination that you look for, but will be interesting to see what his speed is at the combine. So that's the point I made, because when I was watching games, I was curious about that top end speed, because it almost felt to me like he could get away with looking faster maybe than he really is, because he's a long strider and he's big. And then I said, I wonder about his ability to separate at the next level, which obviously you don't get to see in the combine. So you take that into account with the speed, and he probably does drop a little bit, but I still think people are going to be enamored by his size and the fact that he's still pretty fast guy for his size. It'll be the question of whether or not he can develop that route tree. The guy that kind of stood out to me as maybe making a move up, maybe a slight move up, was a favorite of mine kind of in the Senior Bowl kind of process, was looking at Trey Turner. I mean, he ran just over a 4.4. He's kind of been all over the place when it comes to rankings. Like PFF has him ranked way differently than somewhere like TDN. But I think Trey Turner running a 4.44 might have helped his stock a little bit. And I'm not saying it's going to vault him into like the second or third round, but I think all of a sudden Trey Turner may be looked at as a guy that could be, maybe an early day 3 type of pick, whereas before you might have said maybe he's like a late day 3 or a PFA. So obviously Velus Jones, he's been a favorite of ours for for a while now, all three of us, and he acquitted himself very well. I mean, with that 4.31, he's been kind of consistently ranked, I would say, from what we've seen in the 4th to 5th round range. He may have made himself a move up into day 2 now, I would say, potentially with that 40 time at 4.31, because he really is a guy that could be that what I'm dubbing the thick slot, right, with speed.
Yeah.
And
that.
Yeah,
SEC Special Teams Player of the Year, man. Like
I think Velus Jones really, like, he's picking up steam, right? We knew about how good he looked on tape and his special teams prowess and his athletic ability. This is proving it out here now at the combine. So to me, Velus Jones is going to rise up boards, and it's unfortunate because it's almost like that Brandon Bean video that we always pull up where he's like, I hope Gabe doesn't run as fast. We want him to run a little slower so that we can snag him. Like Velus Jones, like, might have been that guy now, right? Like, no, you shouldn't have run a 4.31. Now we can't get you in the 4th round.
Now we'll just get your guy Romeo Dubs.
Oh yeah, Romeo Dubs, man. I don't even. Go there.
And I'll tell you what, just to close out the conversation on wide receivers here,
can we just wait really quick?
Yeah.
Could we all three of us have thoughts on this age thing?
To me, it takes him out to play in the first 3 rounds.
I would say maybe the first. I would say maybe the first 2. I don't think it takes him out of play in the 3rd round.
To me, it takes him out of play in the first 3. I wouldn't take him till the 4th. I'd trade up in the 4th to get him. Like, I would trade a 4th and a 6th to move up in the 4th round and grab him. But I don't know if I'd spend a 3rd. I don't know, Kendall. Where do you fall on this 25-year-old Velus Jones thing?
Yeah, my thing is it's definitely overblown. I think for certain teams, it matters a lot. Like, if you're the Jaguars, you don't want to take a 25-year-old wide receiver. Like, you want a wide receiver that can spend a long time in his 20s growing with Trevor Lawrence, and that's not Velus Jones. But for a team like the Bills, who are built to win now, and they could use a wide receiver 4, someone that can learn under Beasley and then grow into that slot role while starting as a returner, Velus Jones is that dude. And furthermore, I mean, from a contractual standpoint, you kind of look at the antithesis of this, and you look at Tremaine Edmonds, and we're talking about paying him when he's 24 years old, and it's probably going to cost more to pay him because he's so young and because he has so much potential. Think about Velus Jones when his contract is up, his rookie deal is up, he's going to be like, 28, 29. So it won't be too much to pay him at that age, because who's really going to pay significant money to a 28, 29-year-old that's, kind of entering and exiting their prime real quickly. But also you can get them on those prime years, that 27-year-old year, while he's still on his rookie contract. So I think it's overblown. It's overevaluated. I don't think people are going to overlook Jojo Doman because he's 25 years old. It's overblown.
Yeah, they'll overlook him because of the injuries.
Yeah, exactly. That's a different thing.
Hey, overlook him all you want. But Jalen Nailor is young, and does that move him up your board? I don't know if his age moves him up my board, but he had himself a good day today. And he's got that kick return flex as well. I think Jalen Nailor checks some boxes today. And, if he would have came out and ran like a 4.55 or something, like, I would have been like, but I believe he ran in the 4.4. So,
4.5 flat, I think.
Was it a 4.5 flat? I mean, still solid for him. Like, if it would have been higher than that, I think it would have been a little bit more concerning, but he definitely checked the boxes that he needed to check. The three guys that I've sort of honed in on over the rest of this process. And I still like Kyle Phillips. But Kyle Phillips is not on this list. The 3 guys I'm really honing in on: Khalil Shakir, our guy Velus Jones, we mentioned, and my guy Tyquan Thornton. And it's Shakir and Thornton that I think are the two guys that I'm really honing in on. And they both do very different things. Like Khalil Shakir would come in here, and I think Khalil Shakir, he gives me Robert Woods vibes. Like he is just, he catches everything. He's not a body catcher. He's a hands catcher. He just runs such quick routes. He's got such good short area quickness that he can get open. Khalil Shakir to me is just this uber physical, aggressive slot receiver, in a Robert Woods type of mold. And he went out and ran a 4.35 today.
So
and then
Robert Woods with top end speed.
I don't know if that speed is legit.
He didn't look that fast in games to me. He looked slower than Phillips to me in games.
And then, and then Tyquan Thornton from Baylor. I said this before and I'll say it again. He's not a finished product. But you see some of the touchdowns that Emmanuel Sanders caught this year where Josh Allen just found him on some of those deep passes. That's something where you could slot Tyquan Thornton into your offense and you could take deep shots with a guy like Tyquan Thornton down the field. He can be a field stretcher early in his career, and you can utilize that 4.21 speed in other ways, like shallow crossers against teams that are playing man-to-man defense with Miles Bryant for some godforsaken reason. Like he can play that Isaiah McKenzie role a little bit as well, and you can do some gadget stuff and manufacture the ball into his hands to utilize that speed. So Tyquan Thornton, not so much a finished product, but he's a catch point guy as well. He can go up and get it with the best of them, despite maybe a thinner frame, but that 4.21 speed, like that's legit 4.21 speed. That's not a joke. That what the clock wasn't broken. It might come back as like a 4.24 or a 4.25, but he's a sub 4.3 guy. He's legit track star. So I'm really big on Tyquan Thornton. We got your boy Lettuce coming in here saying, I wish Drake London ran after comparing himself to Megatron. You will see him run at his pro day. I think he's still coming back from that fractured ankle. Looking at some other positions, quarterback, Sam Howell seems to be a guy who's picking up a lot of steam, whereas Malik Willis, I think some people are trying to talk him down. Either way, if we can get Willis, Howell, and Pickett, and maybe Corral off the board before 25, maybe get Desmond Ridder, who's really getting a lot of good talk, off the board before 25. I'm pretty happy with that. Cole Kelly looked really good today. I like Cole Kelly a lot. I think he might be moving up draft boards from a 6th, 7th round guy to a 5th round guy. Everyone seems to want to talk really nicely about Jack Cohn. I just don't get it. Someone draft Jack Cohn. Some of these other guys can fall. Dustin Crum is a guy I like late. De'Ara King didn't look too awful, but obviously to me, he's like a priority free agent. But you guys have any thoughts on the quarterbacks? Let's hope they all go before 25, right?
I mean, for what it's worth, Ritter's QB1. He ran the fastest.
Oh, he's not.
He ran the fastest out of all
I
of them.
still got Malik Willis QB1.
No, I thought the funniest thing was that he literally in his press conference said he relates his game to Ryan Tannehill, which is what you said, Tilt. He literally said that. And then 2 days later in his interview, he's like, I modeled my game after Ryan Tannehill, and there was another one. But
people are trying to compare him to Dak. Give me a break.
I think mentally and leadership wise, I actually do believe in him the most. And that's why I have him at QB1. And I think his athletic potential is definitely slept on. And I hope people see that now with the 40 time.
I really like Cole Kelly, though. I really hope that his stock didn't rise too much and he's still available to us in like the 6th, 7th round. That's fair. Really like Cole. I love the ball of clay there from Cole Kelly. And what was the other? I didn't really see Carson Strong at all. Maybe he hasn't gone yet, but Skylar Thompson.
He's throwing right now.
Yeah. Skylar Thompson was the other one I wanted to get some eyes on. So Thompson shot. Apparently Thompson ran a really slow 40, which is
he did. It was like 4.8. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. It is kind of shocking.
4.86. Yeah.
Yep. And then last but not least, before we get to the defense, tight ends, Jelani Woods made himself some money today.
He sure did.
Jelani Woods, and it sucks too.
I had Jelani Woods as my 6th tight end, 4th round grade. You might have to move. He might be jumping the Jake Fergusons and the Greg Dulciches of the world. And
Ferguson, I thought, didn't have a great day. He wasn't really catching the ball strong. He didn't run all that fast. Obviously, he's kind of more of a possession tight end as is. Yeah. But I didn't think he helped himself today.
I don't understand the fascination with Ferguson, to be honest. I know, Steve, you like him, but like he doesn't do it for me, man.
He's a ferocious blocker, man. I'm telling you. Like he's a number 2 tight end. He is a 6-7 year NFL number 2 tight end. I'm not expecting magic from the man.
All right.
I'm not expecting him to take Dawson Knox's job.
Well, then I'll take Daniel Bellinger then if that's what we're looking for.
Greg Dulcich, just like Daniel, despite Daniel Jeremiah not shutting the hell up about Greg Dulcich.
Hey,
Daniel
you
Jeremiah,
love Greg Dulcich.
I like Greg Dulcich, so shut up, Daniel Jeremiah. He's not tight end 1. He's my tight end 3, and I want him there in the 3rd, 4th round. Jalen Weidermeyer, Jelani Woods should totally jump Greg Dulcich.
I was thinking Jelani Woods in the 4th would be nice. But probably not going to happen now.
Chigi Okonkwo from Maryland, he ran a 4.52, so he was super fast. He missed 2020 with myocarditis. Peyton Hendershot, I thought, looked pretty decent as a guy later on. He's got some off-field stuff that needs to be tended to. You got to make sure you're going to, when you invest in the quarterback, and I get it, the bloodlines. Somebody's going to fall in love with Connor Hayward and want to make him their like Reggie Gilliam. It's not going to be us.
I thought he looked really good. Like,
so did I. There's a place for him
up there.
He's not on the Bills.
The best hands of the group.
Yeah,
I was really shocked.
There's just no place for him on the Bills because we got. I know,
and it's upsetting.
I think Connor Hayward could see himself going like the 5th round. Like I think he could get him.
I don't think that's shocking at all. Yeah.
All right, so enough of this offensive talk. This is not an offensive show. We never talk about offense. We're all about the defense here on the Air Raid Hour. We've never spent the first 40 minutes of a show breaking down the Bills' offensive performance when the defense like puts up a shutout before. We've never done that. Like we've never had that. So let's get down to the defense and let's start with edge rushers. This class is absolutely loaded. I have 12 guys with a day 1 or day 2 grade. And there's a couple of other guys that I feel like probably could test into day 2 or just depending on how the board falls, etc. But let's look at these first rounders. Obviously, Aiden Hutchinson, Kayvon Thibodeau, they're out of reach for the Buffalo Bills. But this next group, I take some flack for this, but I have David Ojabo over Jermaine Johnson. I think Ojabo has a higher ceiling. It's 100% a ceiling thing, not a tape thing. But Ojabo, Jermaine Johnson, George Karlaftis, Trayvon Walker. Those are the 6 guys that I have first round grades on here that I'm looking forward to at the combine. Is there any way that these guys could test to 25? Is there any way that these guys could test out of the first round? What are your thoughts on some of these top end edge rushers? Dave, what do you think about some of these top end edge rushers?
Well, at some point it becomes a numbers game, right? Because you start thinking about, okay, all these wide receivers that ran these like crazy 40 times, how many of those guys have kind of now may put themselves in the mix for getting drafted higher? Or is that going to be a sexier pick to take than an edge rusher? Who are the teams that need the edge rushers? I don't necessarily disagree with your rankings. I'd probably have Johnson over Ojabo.
Completely fair.
If it was me, but I just don't see how, unless one of these guys just completely disappoints on like the bench or something random like that. Like, I don't see how these guys are really gonna.
The hope is, right, like a guy like Ojabo tests his way into the top 10, and then maybe a Karlaftis or a Trayvon Walker drop to you.
Yeah, that's possible.
But like, I'm looking at this like Hutchinson, Thibodeau, Ojabo, Johnson, Karlaftis, Walker. That's 6 like consensus first round picks at edge. Then you look at cornerback: Sauce, Booth, Stingley, McDuffie, McCreary, Gordon. That's 6 corners that could easily get a first round grade. Then you go and look at wide receiver: Jamison Williams, Garrett Wilson, Jahan Dotson, Chris Olave, Drake London, Treylon Burks. Some people might even want to throw Christian Watson into the mix there. So, a really good football player is going to be there at pick number 25.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
I've been on this train. Like, I wouldn't mind trading back because there's so much depth in this draft. But now I'm like, no, I want to see who falls to 25. Kind of like when Ed Oliver fell to pick 9.
Yeah. And I also think that it's nice to think about getting that extra value by trading back. But we also know that Brandon Beane is the type that if his guy's there, he'll just take him. Right, he will take his guy if he's there. Could he have traded back last year, maybe, and still gotten Rousseau in the early second? Maybe, right? Could he have done that, in prior years with, I don't know, just trying to think of guys who might come to mind. Like, he probably didn't have to trade up to say get Cody Ford. But my point is, I guess, is that I think at 25, just like Beane did last year, at 30, if his guy's there, he's just going to take him. I just, with the fact that we have 2 6s and 2 7s, like it would seem more likely to me that at least in the early goings, we would probably stay put, and then maybe use that ammo to come up later. We saw him actually trade back this year, but my belief is that we will just stay at 25 and take the best player there.
We got Claude Puig coming in with no Karlaftis, please. He's got Epinesa written all over him. I would respectfully disagree with that. I think a lot of people are copying him to like a little throwback here, like a Justin Smith type of player who played for the Bengals back in the day. I mean, but he's a power player, right?
Yeah.
So like Jermaine Johnson, David Ajabo, Trayvon Walker, they're the freakish athletes. It's George Karlaftis who very much wins with his strength. If George Karlaftis, Kendall, was on the board at 25, should the Buffalo Bills have reservations about taking a power player at edge, given the fact that like everyone wants that bendy guy, or is Brandon Beane going to zig when everyone else wants him to zag?
I mean, you think about how the Panthers were built out on the edge when Beane was there, and it was mostly power rushers.
Yep.
So I don't want to like totally discount everything that Bills Mafia wants to pair the power rusher type of guy in Rousseau with a bendy guy on the other end. So, I mean, that's where I would prefer to go. But if Karlaftis is there, it's going to be really hard for Beane to overlook that, because he was one of those dudes similar to Rousseau coming into the season, had a lot of hype, had a lot of people talking about him, new to the position, new to the game of football, but he's picked it up super quickly. And something like that is something you're very intrigued by. It's why people love Greg Rousseau, because he's able to absorb knowledge so quickly and then translate it onto the field like no problem. So yeah, a guy like Karlaftis is going to be tough for Beane to pass on, but I think kind of like what you said about all of the talent that's going to go in round one, I feel like there's going to be another guy with a more need at that position. And I feel like as great as Karlaftis is, I feel like if there's a Devontae Wyatt or there's a Jordan Davis or there's one of those top cornerbacks on the board, I'd be shocked if Beane went back into the edge well.
Well, I want to ask you guys that, because there's an element here of, the old saying in roulette is like, don't look at the last 9 spins to judge. Like if there were 9 reds in a row, just because you bet black, the odds are the odds are the same whether it's going to be red or black on the next spin. So my point is the Bills have gone defensive line and specifically edge with 3 of their last 4 first and second round draft picks, right? Between Epinesa, Rousseau, Basham, and then going back a year, prior to that, you're talking about Ed Oliver picked in the top 10. So are the Bills, what kind of effect are they going to have if they draft another edge guy in the first round on sort of the makeup of what they're trying to do with this defensive line? What does that mean for Epinesa? What does that mean for Boogie Basham? Right? Are the Bills really going to go into the season with 4 pretty much first, second, or third year guys as their main edge player? Like there's an element of that to me. And like, I'm not going to discount it, because we've seen Beane draft defensive line 3 years in a row with their first picks, right? So you can't discount it. But to me, there has to be an element, like Kendall, what you're saying, all things equal, if you got a corner and an edge guy on the board and you have them pretty close and you really need that corner, like I feel like you have to go with corner. But again, that's just me. I mean, how much that plays into it, I don't know.
Yeah, he's been strict to BPA, so it's really tough to tell.
And then we got some guys here. Here's the guys who are on my day 2, day 3 list that are at the combine. Talk to me about guys you think could possibly get some first round conversations. Cameron Thomas from San Diego State. My comp for him is Max Crosby. He plays with just an absolute relentless effort. Like one of his issues with his tape at San Diego State is he's so gassed at the end of the game because of how hard he plays. So coming to a place like Buffalo with rotation might be good for a guy like Cameron Thomas. But again, more of a power player. The guy that I think could get himself into the first round conversation is Boye Mafe from Minnesota. His testing numbers are going to be something to watch. This guy is an absolute freak athlete. He's sort of that bendy Brian Burnsy type that maybe Bills fans crave. Kingsley and Agbury from South Carolina, Arnold Ebiketie from Penn State. Kendall, I know you like this guy, Majai Sanders from Cincinnati,
Mm.
Logan Hall from Houston, D'Angelo Malone, Dave, your guy from Western Kentucky. I want to see some of his measurables to start comparing him to some of the Bills guys.
I mean, that's exactly what I have noted. Like D'Angelo Malone
Mhm.
testing is going to be really
Yeah.
important for him. Like, what is he going to weigh in as? Like, honestly,
Yeah.
like outside of his drills, like what is his weight going to be? Like,
Mhm.
because if he comes in like super light and does
Mhm.
well, like
Yeah.
you pretty much can cross
But-
him off the Bills.
Right. It's a
But-
watch.
board.
But here's the
Yeah.
thing, because so guys like D'Angelo Malone, I would maybe even throw Drake Jackson in there, Nick Benito. So like say Benito, Malone, even Majai Sanders, Boye Mafe. Maybe they don't fit the Bills archetype, but the better they do at the combine and the more they rise, the more it maybe drops like a Kingsley and Agbury to the Buffalo Bills, or a Josh Pascal into the 4th round instead of the 3rd round. So to me, if some of these bendier types that maybe the Buffalo Bills won't be like drawn to, or at least we think they won't be drawn to, the better they do, the better D'Angelo Malone does, the better Nick Benito does, because I don't think the Buffalo Bills would have any interest in Nick Benito from Oklahoma.
Agreed.
The better they do, the higher they go, the more it pushes a guy like an Agbury back that the Buffalo Bills can pounce on. Kendall, I want you to talk about Majai Sanders, because I think he's going to test very well. And I think going in and seeing some people break down his tape, he's a stronger player than people give him credit for.
Mm-hmm. People look at him and he's kind of like that rail thin, like first step explosion type of guy around the edge. And they kind of think, oh, we got something to work with here. He's not often in a 3-point stance. So you kind of think, oh, he's probably an outside linebacker fit. And when you think that, you think a little bit weaker. But his first step explosion really translates speed to power in a lot of ways. He has a lot of finesse to his game, but you cannot discount how his first step explosion translates into power. He won in a lot of ways. He won because of that first step explosion and his ability to time the snap in a lot of ways. My legit only downside to him is, does he have an ability to impact the run game as a stack and shed player on the edge? And can he get the discipline right on jumping the snap? Because he has a great first step explosion, but there are times when he's trying to time it too well and he was caught offsides a lot. But guys like him, like Arnold Ebiketie, who else? Benito, Mafe, Malone. I think those are guys you're expecting to test really well. I think those guys, the bendier guys, have a lot more to lose in the combine. And then you look at guys like Carl Aftis and Cameron Thomas, and Logan Hall has a lot to win and lose for his tweener kind of thing. But those stronger guys, they have a lot more to gain from this because people aren't expecting them to test all that well in the agility and the speed stuff. So if Karlaftis and Thomas, in my opinion, if those guys test really well, I think they could work themselves up into the first round. And guys like you said, like Ojabo, Walker, and Jermaine Johnson, that tier in the first round, that's in the back end of the first round, if they don't test as well as people are thinking they will, they could drop down, and those power rushers that are really eye-popping could then usurp them and go up. So edge rusher is really interesting in that way because kind of like wide receiver, there are flavors there, and you have to take into account how heavy a dude is and how heavy he is relative to his speed, because it really does impact things.
Charles G comes in and says, "What's up with Dominique Robinson?" He's a guy who kind of just blended in at the Senior Bowl to me, but I think that brings up a good conversation here. Dave, are there any edges that are sort of sticking out to you? Any of the middle to later round guys that you want to see test? You're super interested in seeing how they come out.
I mean, Dominique Robinson, I think he looks more like a 3-4 outside linebacker to me. So, like, I've just kind of noted guys that look like more like 3-4 guys to me that have kind of not necessarily stopped looking into, but have kind of lowered on my research list. One guy that I'm interested in seeing at how they perform is Michael Clemens from Texas A&M. Some decent repertoire of pass rush moves. He's kind of the size power guy that the Bills have typically gone after. And he has a little bit of I would say, depth to his game, right? He's got
Mhm.
some different types of moves. He's able to play the run decently well. And he's a guy that really not a lot of people are talking about right now. He will be at the combine, and it'll be interesting to see how he stacks up. So if if I'm kind of going away from the guys that I like Malone, who are probably more 3-4 guys that really aren't on the Bills' radar, that's a guy I would look at. And Tyreek Smith, right? Had the sack in the Senior Bowl, Ohio State guy. He seems like he's maybe quietly creeping up. His stock might be rising slightly. It'll be interesting to see how he tests, especially in the strength, drills, because he's a guy that, and this seems to be the case with Ohio State edge rushers year in and year out. Not flashy necessarily, but just solid. Can defend the run okay. Has some pass rush moves. He's kind of right in that middle tier for me right now. Tyreek Smith, that maybe he sneaks his way into day 2 with a good performance at the combine. But again, looking at guys that maybe would fit the traditional Bills archetype there, even though there are a lot of guys like D'Angelo Malone that I do like.
Traditional archetype. I think Josh Pascal from Kentucky fits that traditional archetype.
Yeah.
He gives me like John Franklin Myers vibes. Like that's sort of the vibes I get from a Josh Pascal. So his testing numbers will be interesting because I think he's a guy who could rise. Logan Hall from Houston is another one to see if maybe he's like a little bit more nimble than given credit for at his size. But Kendall, you mentioned, you sent us like a little private chat here. You're like, I got a sleeper, and I know. Can I predict who your sleeper is?
Yeah. Shoot.
I feel like you're gonna say Alex Wright from UAB.
Yeah. So
talk a little bit about Alex Wright.
I just put him in my mock, and it was because I wasn't aware of him until I was listening to some podcasts, and then I looked into him some more. I haven't done a lot of film work on him. I've only watched like half a game. But I looked at his advanced metrics, and the dude is like top 5 in everything pass rush productivity wise. 6'6", 270 pounds out of UAB, Alabama, Birmingham. So it's a good football school. Who is it that came out last year? Jordan Smith, I want to say, out of UAB, edge out of UAB. I could be wrong on the name, but either way, they produce some decent football talent, good program, and he was so productive this year. I can't wait to jump into the tape on him, but I've heard nothing but good things about him from draft analysts I respect. So I can't wait to hop into the film on him, and please keep him on your radar, everyone out there. That's an edge. If we don't go early,
talk about length. He's got it
for days. If we're passing on edge early and you still want to add to the room, that's a name I would keep your eye on.
Length, but not weight. A guy that I want to keep my eyes on is the guy who was one of my favorite prospects in college football. I don't want to say he had a down year, but he kind of just blended in this year at Virginia Tech. Amari Barno, 6'6", 330 or 235, 240. I don't know how he fits with the Buffalo Bills, but I know the Buffalo Bills have watched a lot of Virginia Tech. And I know the Buffalo Bills like what goes on at Virginia Tech there, and they always seem to scout it pretty heavily. So Amari Barno is a guy I'm really interested in seeing his testing numbers. Myron Tagovailoa Amosa from Notre Dame, a sort of a power player. I'm really interested to see if maybe he's got a little bit of nimble to his game. And then the last one here, this is a guy who, if you don't already know his name, you are going to know his name after this combine. He was, I knew who he was going into the season, so I knew to keep my eye on him because of Bruce Feldman's freak list. A couple of people have mentioned the freak list in the comment section, but like every year in August, Bruce Feldman puts out a list of like 150 absolute athletic freaks in college football. And I always bookmark it every year. And I just pulled it up in my bookmarks and I scrolled down to number 8, Jeffrey Gunter, Coastal Carolina. And his position at Coastal Carolina was bandit. And I'm just going to read off some of the things that
who was that edge guy from Coastal last year that we liked? I can't remember his name.
Yeah, I'm already blanking on his name too.
Yeah, but
I'll look it up.
Jeffrey Gunter here. He's at 6'4", 273 pounds. Gunter vertical jumps 39 inches, broad jumps 10.2. He's bull strong in the weight room too, benching 435, doing 225 for 30 reps, squatting 525, and power cleaning with no wrist straps 365. His pro shuttle time of 437 is also terrific. In the Coastal Carolina scheme, Gunter plays the bandit position, which is an outside linebacker that plays to the boundary, drops into coverage, and plays in a 2-point stance so he can disguise rushing versus dropping into pass coverage. In last season's opener with Coastal, when Coastal whipped Kansas, Gunter ran with Jayhawks' most dynamic athlete, Puka Williams, on a wheel route, and he stuck with him. He has great length and raw athletic ability, said Coastal defensive coordinator Chad Staggs, but I believe what sets him apart is his work ethic and his relentless effort. A guy like Jeffrey Gunter is a guy in the later rounds of this draft that I think a lot of teams are going to have their eye on from Coastal Carolina. So just keep that name in mind because he's probably somebody who's going to be all over Twitter when the defensive ends are working out on Saturday, I believe it is. So moving on now.
Aaron Jackson was the guy I was thinking of.
I thought it was Jackson. I couldn't remember the first name.
So I got two guys as solidly first rounders right now, Jordan Davis and Devontae Wyatt. I think the way they test is going to dictate whether they're on the board at 25 or not. I think it's going to be really cool. Jordan Davis, he's been working out on his own and posting some videos on the internet, and they're kind of crazy, some of the workouts that he's doing. So Jordan Davis could just come in, blow up the combine, and end up being like a top 10 pick again, right? Like he could what's that? Greg Tomset says it all the time. Just because they haven't been asked to do it doesn't mean they can't do it. So Jordan Davis might be trying to prove to some people at the combine that he can be a 3-down player. But then you have Devontae Wyatt who's going to come in and probably try to show people that, he's more than just the guy next to Jordan Davis. You got Perion Winfrey, Travis Jones, DeMarvin Leal. These guys are all athletically gifted enough to test into the first round. And then you got my guy, Phil Mathis, who's sort of sitting around there. I think he's a 3rd round pick, but obviously I think he could test his way into the 2nd as well. I don't think he's as good of an athlete as a bunch of these other guys. So I have him as a 3rd round pick. But what are your thoughts on just the upper echelon of this defensive tackle class? Dave, I'll start with you and then Kendall, and then we'll get to by chance's super chat here.
It's funny because we talk about the numbers game and we talk about every position, like so all these wide receivers, all these corners, all these edge play. Well, not so much the edge, but corners, receivers, and even edge, there's like 5 or 6, right? When it comes to these interior defensive linemen, there's like maybe 1 or 2, maybe 3 guys. Volume is low here when you talk about possible difference makers that are going to be potential first round picks. So I would not be, and it's not a position that you're necessarily going to like trade up to get, but if someone like falls in your lap, you'll be happy to kind of go up to the podium and take them. Right. So the people that kind of want to trade up for a Jordan Davis, like I don't think I'm there yet. And I wouldn't be opposed to just kind of seeing how the board falls right on draft day, given all these wide receivers, given all these edge players and corners we're talking about. Like one of these 3 guys is going to probably start falling into the mid to late 20s, right? So is that going to be Jordan Davis? Is it going to be Devontae Wyatt? Like there's a chance like all of these guys maybe make it into the 20s, and then you kind of see like what happened last year with the edge guys at the end of the first. You have like 1, 2, 3 in a row. So I think what's going to be key with these top guys is when does the first guy get picked? Yeah, that's the key to me. When does the first IDL get picked, and does that create kind of a snowball effect for the scarcity, let's say, of the first round?
Because if Jordan Davis goes at 20, Devontae Wyatt's still probably there for you at 25. But if Jordan Davis goes at 13,
exactly.
Absolutely.
So Kendall, it's the first guy to me.
Kendall, how about this scenario for you? Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt are both on the board at 25. Who are you taking?
I hate you. I hate you. Why would you put me on the spot like this?
You trade up to 26 and take both of them?
No, I'm looking at my big board, and those are 2 guys that I've done a lot of work on, and I have Wyatt graded a lot better than Davis.
I'd take Wyatt.
And I think I have to trust my grades. The thing with Wyatt is that he's all around better, but where Davis is better than Wyatt, there's a massive gap. Like the strength, the ability to shed blockers at will, like the range for his size. Like Wyatt has better
like
range.
What we need to, in a way.
He's what we need. Like that's the thing. Like, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying that I mean, I don't know. I like Wyatt more as a player because he's more well-rounded, but like, I'm not sitting here saying Jordan Davis is a bad player, but to me, there's just like, there's something holding me back from taking a guy that may never give you a 3rd down, passing down presence as a defensive tackle, but I can't deny how amazing he is as a rundown defensive tackle. So
And
that's why I hate you for asking me this question. But
and
no, it's a
yeah.
really tough one. Like at the end
Here
of the
you
day,
go.
for Brandon Beane did say there are no
Mhm.
cornerbacks on the board in that
Mhm.
scenario, and it's Wyatt and Davis on the board.
Yeah.
I would have no problems if he picked either one of them. You can't
Yeah.
go wrong, in my opinion.
Yeah,
if
and I
you
mean,
pick either one.
Charles G comes in and says, after listening to Marino's pod, I'm all the way on Davis. I'm really intrigued by Joe Marino's podcast when he sort of promoted this morning. Haven't had a chance to listen to it yet.
Yeah,
My guess is he probably came in with the argument that Jordan Davis is a 2-down player, that teams like Alabama took advantage, kept Jordan Davis on the field. Teams like to run hurry up offenses to try to keep Jordan Davis on the field. There were a number of occasions where teams would try to keep Jordan Davis in the field, but that's what this combine is for, right? Like I've seen some of the videos of Jordan Davis working out. Maybe he doesn't weigh in at 340. Maybe he weighs in at 320. You know what I'm saying? Like
Right.
maybe, he makes some fundamental changes to his body to be a different type of player. But then you have to ask yourself, like, can he still do what he does at 320 as opposed to 3? It's going to be really interesting to see on Davis. I think he tests off the charts, and I think he still goes top 15. But Perrion Winfrey, Travis Jones, DeMarvin Leal. Winfrey and Jones were the darlings of the Senior Bowl, and both of these guys could easily test themselves into the first round. DeMarvin Leal was up in the conversation with Evan Neal as one of the better players in the draft this year. It was Thibodeau, it was Neal, it was Leal at the beginning of the year. Those were the three. And Stingley, those were the four. Those were the alphas of this draft class heading into this season. DeMarvin Leal kind of faded off a little bit. Well, he can easily get to the combine and remind everyone why he was a top-notch recruit. Remind everyone why he was so high on boards heading into the season. So a guy like DeMarvin Leal could, I don't want to say fool some people, but turn some people around and think that there's still a lot more upside there and potential that can be untapped. I wouldn't be surprised if any one of these three went in the first round.
I hope Leal tests amazing, because I don't think he's a guy the Bills have any interest at all in him.
I don't know. Here's the thing, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Winfrey and Leal. But if we re-sign Harrison Phillips and then sign another defensive tackle in free agency,
I see. Yeah.
And we think Winfrey or Leal is the best player on the board, this is a team that signed Quentin Jefferson and wanted to have a role for him, and then Starlo Tulele decided to sit out the season, and we're using Quentin Jefferson at one tech. We've never replaced the Quentin Jefferson part of this defense.
Yeah.
Right? The Bills haven't replaced that Quentin Jefferson yet. I feel like the Bills haven't won another 3-tech. They want a Quentin Jefferson type.
Yeah. Okay.
Perrion Winfrey, DeMarvin Leal kind of fit that mold.
Yeah, they do.
So it should be interesting. By chance, we apologize for taking so long to get your super chat. But he says, can you guys settle this disagreement? Was Spencer Brown good as a rookie? People act like he was fantastic when he really struggled. I will say
he
that
had ups and downs.
In some points in the season, I would the adjective I would use to describe his rookie season is good. So I wouldn't say he was bad. I wouldn't say he was great. I wouldn't say he was fantastic. I would say for all the bad games he had some absolutely stellar games, and that sort of averages out to good. And you hope that some of those spectacular games that he had, that's where his ceiling lies, and that's where he can find as he develops as a player. I don't know. Do you guys have any different thoughts on that?
I think he's
I can see where he's come from. The game where he kicked over to left tackle wasn't great with all those penalties.
No, not at all. He had some really bad moments, but that's to be expected, especially from a third rounder out of Northern Iowa playing one of the most.
Who Bean even said he's
ready.
Supposed to be our swing tackle this year. He was never supposed to be a starter.
So that's the thing. I think with Spencer Brown, it's not that he was a miss in that draft class. I think if anything, he was a massive hit for the projection of what the player could be. And I think he exceeded expectations for year one of a third rounder with his circumstances. So that's where I stand on him. I don't think he was a world beater by any means, but he definitely exceeded expectations for his draft slot.
All right. Looking at the rest of the combine, I'm hoping Fedarian Mathis has a bad combine because I want him in the third round. I'm hoping he has a bad combine. Some other guys on my list here, it's a shallow list. Like my list of guys that excite me stops at 12. Matt and the rest of my list, I can go to like 40 and I'm happy with these guys. Matthew Butler from Tennessee had a really good shrine game. Joe Marino's a big fan of his. Thomas Booker from Stanford was in the 280s, bulked all the way up to 310 this season. I think he's going to be a riser. A guy who did pretty well at the Senior Bowl, Otito Ogbonya from UCLA, is a guy that I have my eyes on. John Ridgway's testing numbers I'm going to have my eyes on. Neil Farrell from LSU, his testing numbers I'm going to have my eye on. and Ioma Uwazurike from Iowa State. I'm going to have my eyes on him as well. Guys like, we're going to look at guys like DJ Davidson or Marquand McCall or Noah Ellis. Like, okay, but those guys are like literally what we just thought the problem with Jordan Davis was. They are run down one techs. Some of these guys like Uwazurike, Farrell, Ridgeway, Ogbonnia, Booker, Butler, you can see some, I don't want to say Vernon Butler to their game, but you can use them like Vernon Butler, where you can see them at one tech and a little bit of three tech. You can see some versatility to their game. They are not going to be just stuck as a 2-down, thumper. They have a little bit more versatility to their game.
What I will say about that, though, is taking a Jordan Davis in round 1 to be a 2-down defensive tackle is very different from taking a Marquand McCall in the 5th round to be a 2-down defensive tackle. And I think that's where the intrigue and the cost benefit analysis starts and ends when you talk about drafting a one tech. It's where it's a value proposition. Where does it strike the most value? And I think that's where there's a lot of pause for people on Jordan Davis at 25.
Yeah.
That's exactly why the same reasons why we were like happy taking Tonga or Daryl Slayton in like the 5th, 6th round last year. We would have been happy with that because
it's the value,
that value proposition, right?
And
otherwise, what we were talking about guys like Elam McNeil early on who could do a little bit of both.
Yeah, he could pass rush a little bit.
This defensive tackle class is crazy, right? Like I see a whole bunch of guys that I'd be satisfied with. Uwazurike, Farrell, Ridgeway, Ogbonnia, Booker, Butler. I honestly think I might, just because of the Bills' need, I might be a round too high on all of them. Like I got Butler as a 3rd rounder, Booker as a 4th rounder, Ogbonnia as a 4th rounder, Ridgeway I might be a round high on all of these guys, but it's also a really shallow class because I look at some of the guys behind them. Like after Uwazurike, I like Zach Carter sort of as like a poor man's DeMarvin Leal. So maybe the Buffalo Bills, if he's sitting there in the 5th round, a guy like Zach Carter could be their Quentin Jefferson type. There's Noah Ellis, who's very much like the Tedderell Slayton of this year's draft. Jonathan Ford from Miami might interest the Bills with their connection to Manny Diaz, but like DJ Davidson, Jaden Peavy, like, Haskell Garrett. It's just,
I don't like this class like as much as last year for sure.
I have a problem with the NFL scouting combine. Some of the defensive tackles they didn't invite are better than the ones they did. Tyrone Truesdale from Florida, Derek Tangelo from Penn State, Tylen Humphrey from Louisiana, Eric Johnson from Missouri State, who's at the Senior Bowl, didn't get an invite. Matt Henningsen from Wisconsin, like LaRon Stokes from Oklahoma. Like there are better dudes that didn't get invited to the combine than some of these dudes who did. It's crazy. I like Kalia Davis from UCF though. So I'm going to be interested in his testing numbers. I like Kalia Davis. I don't know. Anyone else? Christopher Hinton. Have you guys had a chance to look at Christopher Hinton yet?
Nope.
I haven't looked into Christopher Hinton yet.
I've heard some decent things about his ability as sort of like a backup 3 tech, but also I've heard some really bad things about Christopher Hinton. So I still got to do some more digging. It'll be really interesting to see how Christopher Hinton tests.
Someone find me this year's Forrest Merrill, and then I'll get it.
Christopher Hinton is a guy who could rise up draft boards. I think Matt Hennessy could be this year's Forrest Merrill. So look at Wisconsin.
My one thing to add on IDL is I just went through and scouted Mathis, Ridgeway, and Ogbonnia, and my opinion or prediction is that Ridgeway is going to test really, really poorly. And I think
he's also
going to have to do everything for him.
And he's also older
too.
And he's got injury history.
He's probably going to slip into round 3 or round 4.
Ridgeway?
Regardless.
I think he'd probably get Ridgeway in round 5, to be honest.
And I really think his combine stuff is going to push him into round 5, but his tape is better than what I'm assuming his combine will reflect. So I think that's a win for Bills Mafia, for everyone in Bills Mafia that wants a one tech, because I think his tape is fairly good, but in his tape, it's evident that he can't do a whole lot of rangy stuff. He is really pigeonholed in the 2-down run stopping mold.
All right. So linebacker, I don't know how much time we want to spend here. Nakobe Dean, Devin Lloyd are both, these guys are really good linebackers. I hope they're both off the board by 25. So some good ones drop, some good players drop. Cause I think anyone who thinks that Jermaine Evans is not going to be here next year, I think is kidding themselves. Chad Muma is going to be someone to watch at this combine. I think Chad Muma is a guy who could early 2nd round come off the board. Christian Harris is going to test off the charts, but I don't really like his tape. Darren Beavers is interesting. I love the 2 Georgia linebackers, Channing Tindall and Quay Walker, but also they had Jordan Davis, Devontae Wyatt, Trayvon Walker. Like they had all these guys in front of them. So Brian S. Osamoah from Oklahoma. is really good. I'm really interested in seeing Damone Clark and Troy Anderson.
Yeah.
I think the medicals will be huge for JoJo Doman because he's got some issues. Terrell Bernard's medicals at the combine will be huge. Jesse Lucetta from Penn State is another guy with some Lorenzo Alexander vibes to his game. Those are some of the early-ish ones. Leo Chanel from Wisconsin, kind of a thumper. Sanborn, kind of a thumper. Any early-ish, like, are there any guys who could potentially be a round 3 linebacker that you have your eye on as someone to maybe hedge your bets on Tremaine Edmonds a little bit?
Round 3, it's funny because like the way I'm looking at this, like the guys that I feel like are Tremaine Edmonds' possible contingency plans are either higher than round 3 or like way down the list, right? Like I feel like you look at like Beavers to me, right? He could easily be like the contingency plan for Edmonds, but that's like a round 2 guy to me. And then you start going down the list and like, are you really going to say like a guy like Jack Sanborn is a replacement for Edmonds? No, like he's way down the list, like past round 4 and 5. So then you talk about like the guys you like Asamoah, Tyndall, like they're not really replacements for Edmonds. So is it Chad Muma who maybe could be that guy? Like, it's tough, right? Because the value for where you're maybe thinking about this guy in the middle rounds, I don't know that it's there if you're looking for an Edmonds.
I think Damone Clark would be like the inside guy. He's a guy I have my eye on. He's always popped. Kendall, you mentioned this on a previous show too. A guy like Darian Beavers, if he's there in the 3rd round, you could not only hedge your bets with Tremaine Edmonds by drafting a guy like Darren Beavers. He could also bring like another element to your defense, correct? Like you could see maybe the Buffalo Bills playing a little bit more base if they have a guy like Darian Beavers.
Yeah, that's really my intrigue with Darian Beavers. It's that you're killing like 3 birds with one stone. It's the versatility he has as a pass coverage dude, as a run stopper, and as a pass rusher. He is truly a hybrid linebacker. He can do all those things at like, I don't know his height, but he's like 250 pounds and he's over 6 foot. And he's really athletic dude for that size. So I'm expecting him to test well. But yeah, like you said, he'll probably go in round 2 if he tests.
That's my guess.
But the thing with him and what you were alluding to, Judge, is there's parts of this defense where I want the Bills to get a little less vanilla and get a little bit more like Patriots defense-y, where you're getting some hybrid elements and you're showing some 3-man fronts with 3 linebackers out there. And because of that, you don't know which one of those 3 linebackers is blitzing to make it a 4-man rush. And I think Beavers is someone who can rush more than sufficiently, but he can also drop into coverage sufficiently. So he's someone that's been very interesting to me because I watched a lot of Cincinnati football this year. Just a really versatile skill set, super athletic. So I'm very interested in him, but once again, it's a value thing. Are we even going to be in a 4-3, 3 linebacker defense enough to merit a 3rd round pick if he falls to the 3rd round? There's a lot of factors that go into it. For my money, as much as I love Darian Beavers, I don't know if I'm looking at the hedging your bets on Tremaine Edmonds guy until like round 5.
And the thing about Beavers too, like if it's not Beavers, maybe it's the 3rd round or the 4th round. A guy like Jesse Lucetta could probably fill that role. Maybe even a Troy Anderson, who's kind of used like Taysom Hill there at Montana State, and even like a Leo Chanel. So there are some guys I think that could do what you just mentioned. Beavers can do. A guy I think could drop in this draft, and it would be an absolute steal from somebody because I think this guy reminds me so much of Matt Milano, is JoJo Doman from Nebraska. Yes. He plays a lot of nickel cornerback. Despite the fact that he is like a 230-pound linebacker, almost like Matt Milano size. Got some injury history. He's a little bit older of a prospect, but I mean, his ability in pass coverage is just absolutely incredible. Speak to JoJo Doman a little bit and like say he's sitting there in the 4th round because of the injuries dropped him or whatever, but the Buffalo Bills feel comfortable with the medicals in the 4th round. Is he too redundant to like a Matt Milano and not enough to like not big enough like to fill a role in this Buffalo Bills defense? Like, is JoJo Doman only a guy who can trade down this defense if Matt Milano gets hurt?
That's kind of where I was when I was scouting JoJo Domann. It was that this dude reminds me too much of Matt Milano that I don't even know if he would have a spot on this team to play on the field at the same time as Matt Milano. The one caveat to that is obviously the trend of the NFL. More passing, lighter defenses, more rangy defenses. So you don't necessarily want your third linebacker to be a thumper. You want your third linebacker to be able to drop into zones and play some man-to-man coverage on running backs and tight ends. So that's an area where maybe if you have Milano, Domann, and Edmonds, you have three guys that can adequately stop the run and adequately defend the pass. So it's interesting in that regard, but I think the redundancy is too much for me to use a fourth round pick. I think a fifth round pick is where I would probably do it. And I don't think he's going to drop that far with the way he flashes on tape.
Where do you guys, I have a question for you guys both about Domann. How do you stack him up against a guy like Asamoah? Do you have Asamoah below him, above him? Because I feel like Asamoah, when I was looking at games and looking at his profile, he reminded me a little bit of Matt Milano as well, and his pass coverage abilities, as athleticism, size. How do you stack those two guys up against each other?
I got Asamoah at 7, and I got JoJo Domann at 11. Honestly, I think Domann might be the better player, but age and the injury history is what put Asamoah higher on my list. And the upside of guys like Channing Tindall and Troy Anderson also put them above JoJo Domann on my list, just because I always look at my list from the lens of like the Buffalo Bills. It's just where my biases are. So, to me, those are the things that put some other guys like Damone Clark too, because he's got the ability to play that inside linebacker spot, put them ahead of JoJo Domann for me, at least.
Yeah, no, I'm in a very similar boat, like pretty much exactly what you said. I think Domann is the better player, but I think he will not get drafted higher than Asamoah. I think 100% it makes more sense for Asamoah to get drafted higher because of the lack of red flags and the age thing. I just think for that reason, Domann will slip a little bit more than his tape should suggest, but I think they are very, very similar players.
Is Domann worth a guy maybe using ammo with one of your extra 6 to move up in the 5th and take him based on that potentially? Or do you say, well, no, we're just going to
probably not because of the red flags, because of the age and the red flags. You don't want to overinvest in something that does have an element of risk.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Any late linebackers stick out to you? Because there's one that sticks out to me like a sore thumb.
Wait,
I mean,
can I guess?
Yes.
I have one, and he's at the combine.
Micah McFadden.
I like.
Oh, he's on my list too. He's on my list too.
I like Micah McFadden.
That wasn't.
That's not mine. No,
okay.
It's not mine either.
Everyone's gonna hate my pick because my guy is 5'11" and 225 pounds. Malcolm Rodriguez of Oklahoma State. This is a guy, Malcolm Rodriguez of Oklahoma State. He's been one of my favorite players in college football for the past 2 seasons. This is a guy who was a 2-time state champion in wrestling, played quarterback in high school. He moved from safety to linebacker. He was a 4-year starter at Oak State, played over 3,000 defensive snaps, 500 plus special team snaps, 300 plus tackles, 7 forced fumbles. His entire 4-year college career only committed 3 penalties. Malcolm Rodriguez plays with just an absolute relentless motor, a relentless effort. You look at some advanced statistics from PFF, most tackles for loss or no gain among Power 5 linebackers. It was Devin Lloyd and Malcolm Rodriguez tied at 25. Most coverage snaps played without allowing a touchdown among linebackers last season. Malcolm Rodriguez was number 1 with 430. The next closest was future top 10 pick Noah Sewell at 389. Wow. Malcolm Rodriguez is an absolute baller. He's got invited to the combine, but for some reason he was only playing, I believe, in the NFLPA Bowl. This dude is one of the best linebackers in college football. He is going to be in the National Football League as a special teams maven, sort of a Tyler Matakevich replacement for a long, long time. And despite his size problems, 5'11", 225, he is still good enough to be that special teams maven. And if somebody gets hurt, he can step in and not embarrass himself in the National Football League. Malcolm Rodriguez is going to be an absolute steal from somebody, and I really hope he's a steal for the Buffalo Bills. Love Malcolm Rodriguez.
I like that. You did a good job.
I like that. My late round and maybe even undraftable is Mike Rose from Iowa State.
I like that.
Probably gonna he's probably going to be more of a replacement or a contingency for Edmonds. Not even a contingency, right? But in a pinch, like maybe he's your AJ Klein replacement, right? This is a guy that had racked up TFLs throughout his career at Iowa State, over 40 TFLs as out of the linebacker position. So that's pretty impressive, and had 5 interceptions in 2020 as a linebacker. So I really like Mike Rose as a late round linebacker, guy that could come in and maybe like replace AJ Klein's spot on the roster and maybe even give you some flexibility on special teams. He's not like the best athlete, but he's a competitor and he's a smart player, and I really like him as a late round option.
Yeah, and then last but not least, I do like Jeremiah Gemmel. So I always say I get my Jeremiah Gemmel in there from North Carolina, and Terrell Bernard from Baylor. So that those Dave Aranda ties there at that Baylor defense. On to cornerbacks now. Again, loaded class. It's easy to say this, right? Sauce Gardner, Andrew Booth Jr., Derek Stingley, Trent McDuffie, Roger McCreary, Kyler Gordon. One of them is going to be there at 25, right?
I sure hope so.
One of them will be there at 25. The only question is like who else is also there? But I mean, these are 6 bona fide studs, all first round corners. The problem is like it drops off after Kyler Gordon, right? Like the next one up is Kaiir Elam, who's a second rounder. And then I struggled to find a second round grade on anyone else, like Mario Goodrich, Cam Taylor-Britt, Jalen Armour-Davis. You can go with the athletic freak and Tariq Woolen, Josh Williams from Fayetteville State. I think it's going to rise. Martin Emerson, Darion Kendrick. I mean, and we're going to get into some of these middle round guys in a little bit, but after the top 6, kind of there's like a little lull there in the second round, third round before I think it heats up again around the beginning of day 3. What are your guys' thoughts on the top of the class? Like, who's the guy where if he's at 25, like you got to get him?
Oh my God. I mean, the tough part about this is, I mean, I guess I'll rule out Stingley and Gardner, but if you're looking at the potential of if Booth falls, if McDuffie falls, if McCreary or Gordon falls, I mean, I'd take any of those guys. There's upside to all 4 of those guys I just mentioned, and all 4 of those guys have a chance.
Booth isn't falling.
I think there's a chance Booth falls,
you
and
think
specifically because he probably he's sitting out from the combine stuff, and people could poo-poo his pro day numbers and be like, oh, those are inflated, things like that. So, and I think there are some concerns about his technique and how he just kind of bails himself out because he's so athletic. But I think there's equal amount of chance for Booth, McDuffie, McCreary, or Gordon to fall into that 25th pick. I just have no idea what it's going to be because it's going to depend on flavor, kind of like the wide receiver thing.
Yeah,
we'll go ahead and pass on all of them and take an edge player, I'm sure.
Yeah, but it's like,
how dare you?
If Sauce Gardner gets out of the top 10, that's when you start having conversations about what does it take to trade up. I think if Andrew Booth gets past like 18 or 19, you start having conversations about what it takes to trade up. I think guys like McDuffie, McCreary, and Gordon, you probably wait to 25 to take. But I think Booth, I think Booth and Gardner are 2 guys that I'd be willing to have the conversation if they start to slip. Not that I think either of them will. Looking at this combine now, like Kaiir Elam, Mario Goodrich, Cam Taylor-Britt, Jalen Armour-Davis, a guy who's probably going to test off the charts, who I'm not so high on as other people are. Tariq Woolen from UTSA, Josh Thomas from Fayetteville State, Martin Emerson, Marcus Jones, Alontae Taylor, Darian Kendrick, a guy I know you want to talk about, Dave, Monteric Brown, Kobe Bryant from Cincinnati. Who are some guys in the middle rounds that you want to really see step up and provide some really good combine numbers to support the fact that you like them? Dave, who are some guys that you want to see a good combine from?
Yeah, I'm not going to sit here and name 10 guys because like we could go on for hours.
That's my job.
So yeah, I'll stick to 3 guys that I'm really interested in seeing. Obviously, I'm going to be watching my guy Alontae Taylor and seeing how he performs, and that goes without saying, right? The former wide receiver has shown progression in playing defensive back. Super solid kid, right? Great head on his shoulders, academic honors. adaptable, obviously, wouldn't have issues with probably learning responsibilities on the next level. But how will he test, right? As a former wide receiver, he's probably going to test decently in the 40, but how is he going to test in like the agility drills and the strength drills? Who knows, right? So we'll see on that. So obviously, Alontae Taylor, I'm interested in. We've talked a lot already about Cam Taylor-Britt, so I'll kind of like leave him out for now. I'm interested in Darian Kendrick from Georgia. Again, he's an outside only guy. He's probably really more of a zone guy, which is fine. I know we're kind of talking about like, should we get a little more man-to-man type elements in here? But he's really kind of the archetype of what
He is.
The Bills have drafted. He's 6 foot 190. Like he is like the Kevin Johnson archetype, right? If they decide to pass on one of these early guys or these early guys drop, I like Kendrick in the middle rounds, late third, kind of seems right about where he would go. And that's like right where the Bills are picking, right? And then obviously Montaric Brown, new research for me on him today. I really liked what I saw. He is a guy that has both man-to-man and zone abilities. He's got, again, the kind of size that the Bills would like. He's 6 foot 190. Had 5 interceptions in 2021, so you like the ball skills there. But the question will be, how does he run? I think at the combine, what's his 40 time going to be? He doesn't look like the fastest guy on the field when you watch the games. He's very heady, but what's that speed going to be? What's his closing speed going to? What kind of closing speed is he going to offer at the next level? I know that's not so much of an issue in zone as much, but man, Montaric Brown is a guy to me that middle rounds, 4th round, I'd be happy to take a chance on him. But yeah, so those 3 guys I think are the 3 that I'll really have my eyes on: Taylor, Kendrick, and Brown in the middle rounds.
What are you thinking, Kendall? Who are some guys in the middle rounds that you're looking to see step up at the combine?
Specifically at the combine, I'm looking at Martin Emerson and Kobe Bryant. I'm expecting
I think Kobe Bryant's going to test poorly.
I think the exact opposite.
Really?
I think Kobe Bryant is the more athletic one that out of the 2 in Cincinnati. I think he will test better in some of like the explosion type stuff. I don't know if he's going to be faster than Gardner. I wouldn't be shocked if he is, but I think Gardner plays with probably more straight line speed in my opinion, but Bryant, his explosion, his ability, his vert, like you can see it all on tape. He really has a lot of athleticism in the explosion regard, but it's the quick change of direction. It's the straight line, long speed. Those are the questions I have. So that's why I want to watch him in the combine. And I'm hoping he does moderately well, not too well to get him out of the 3rd round, because I'd like him to be there in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's someone I'm watching closely. And then same with Martin Emerson. He's a bigger dude. I think he's like 6'2", closer to 200, lengthy. I thought he looked athletic on tape. There were a couple times he had to chase down I think he was chasing down like to block for one of his guys who got an interception. That was like a 70-yard interception for a touchdown. And he went and closed like a 50-yard gap to go catch up to the opposing team's quarterback. So I see some athleticism there, and I've heard some people have some concerns, but I think he has good transition skills and good hip fluidity for someone with that like long of limbs. It's hard to kind of like keep it all compact and keep your body control about you when you're that big and you're that long. So I think he's going to do well for his size, and I hope he does well enough to earn himself some money, but I'm worried that he's going to push himself up into round 2, because I like his tape personally. But I'm worried that he would push himself up into round 2. I'd like him also to be there in the round 3 conversation with Kobe Bryant. There's a lot of guys, like you said, Cam Taylor-Britt. There are a lot of guys that I want to be there at round 3, but I think the way the NFL is going, you got to defend the pass, and I think these guys their value will be inflated for that reason. They will get drafted a little bit higher than maybe they deserve to, just because of positional value.
Yeah, just looking at this board, Kalen Barnes from Baylor is going to shock a lot of people with some of his testing numbers because he was, a track star. But he's a late round pick. Don't let his testing numbers shock you. The guys I have my eyes on: Jalen Armour Davis from Alabama. I really want to see how he tests. I think he's a guy who could work himself into day 2 of the draft. Josh Williams from Fayetteville State is another guy I think could work himself into day 2 of the draft. I mentioned before, I get Kevin Johnson vibes from the guy. And I like both of these guys' ability to maybe play a little bit of press man and do a little bit more man stuff as opposed to just zone stuff. So I like them for that. And then later on, same concept, a guy who might be able to be a little more physical, a little bit more aggressive. A guy like Isaac Taylor Stewart's got some good size from UCLA.
Start on my list. Yep.
So it'll be interesting to see his testing numbers. Some guys who I like their game, but they're not the most athletic guys in the world. So I want to see how they test. I love Jermaine Waller from Virginia Tech. I think he's a plug and play guy. I think in the Buffalo Bills system, I think a guy like Jermaine Waller is a plug and play guy. And Tariq Castro Fields, I want to see their testing numbers. And then last but not least, the guys who have return flex. Marcus Jones from Houston. Mm-hmm. Is he going to be a round 3 guy? That's too rich for my blood at his size. Is he going to test his way into day 3, or is he a 4th round pick? I'm interested in Marcus Jones in the 4th round, not so much in the 3rd round. And then Jack Jones from Arizona State, another smaller guy, 5'10", 175 pounds, but USC recruit who went to Arizona State. I mean, he played sticky coverage with just about any receiver in the Pac-12, and he's got punt return flex. So Jack Jones is a super interesting guy. Charles G says, where did Mario Goodrich go? I think Mario Goodrich probably goes in the 2nd or the 3rd round. I think, Kendall, you explained how his game was a little bit like Levi Wallace's game, where it's solid. If we draft Mario Goodrich, cool, but it's not like something that's going to really make you like.
It's not sexy.
It's not sexy.
It's not.
But yeah, Alontae Taylor is definitely a guy to keep your eye on with the testing numbers. He's a guy who could transition to safety. Cam Taylor-Britt could transition to safety. Mm-hmm. Yep. And that leads us now to transition our next conversation to safety. Kyle Hamilton's going to be fun. That's going to be a guy who's going to be really fun to watch on Saturday. Daxton Hill, Jalen Petrie, Jaquan Brisker, Lewis Seen. There are some dudes who could go in the first 2 rounds of the draft. Whether the Buffalo Bills will have interest in them or not, I don't know. But there are some cool safeties at the top, but then the depth is not great at safety. Mm-hmm. Like I'm sitting here trying to like look at guys. Nick Cross is going to, I think, have a really good, another track guy. I think he's going to have a really good combine. It's going to really shoot up some draft boards. He's interesting. He's interesting to me in the middle rounds. Kirby Joseph is another guy who could test well, had a good Senior Bowl. Mm-hmm. Verone McKinley from Oregon, I've always been a big fan of. I want to see how he tests. Damari Mathis from Pittsburgh. But I mean, like Bubba Bolden, Smoke Monday, like once you get past like Nick Cross in the 3rd or Verone McKinley, like it just becomes like, oh, these guys are just like Josh Thomas, DeMar Hamlin, and Jaquan Johnson. Like there ain't much depth to this draft. So I'm sitting there trying to like look for guys. Like Bubba Bolden is the one that sticks out to me like a sore thumb. And there's a couple of guys who didn't get invited to the combine, but I don't know. Any of these safeties stick out to you, or any of these safeties you guys want to really talk about?
I mean, Bolden I like, but again, if you look at safety and you look at linebacker, and depending on what happens in free agency, these could be positions that just get glossed over by the Bills in the draft. Like all their linebackers are under contract. Even if they don't sign a linebacker in free agency, if they keep AJ Klein around, there's no point really, I don't think, in the Bills drafting a linebacker and wasting draft capital on that, unless they really believe they want to have a contingency for Edmonds, or they plan on maybe cutting Klein later on, during camp or whatever. As far as safety, I feel like it's probably the least position the Bills really need to worry about draft capital on, at least right now, right? Micah Hyde and Poyer don't come off the field. If for some reason one of those guys gets hurt, is a safety you're going to pick in like the 5th, 6th round really going to, like you already have DeMar Hamlin, Jaquan Johnson on the roster who are both 6th rounders, right? So I don't know. For me, it's safety is kind of one of those, I kind of forget about it when it comes to the draft. Last year, there were some fun ones. This year, to me, not so many. So not going to really be getting too excited about the safety class, really.
Other than our boy Reed Blankenship, who didn't get invited.
Oh, of course.
Bullshit.
Of course. That's such crap. That's such crap.
Kendall, anyone stick out to you? I know Leon O'Neal had like a good Senior Bowl.
Yeah, he did.
Marquise Bell had a good Shrine Bowl.
What I will say is I agree with everything you just said, Tilt, about looking at this safety position and using draft capital on it this year. I think last year when we were looking into it for the same reasons we would be this year, and it's to find an eventual successor for Poyer or Hyde or both, whatever it is. And because we drafted Hamlin last year, it makes me less dedicated or motivated to even looking into these safeties, because why would we use draft capital 2 years in a row to take a stab at this when we have Josh Thomas and Damar Hamlin? I don't think. I think if the Bills bring back Jaquan Johnson, I'm of the mindset that he's going to be brought back as a special teamer. Especially, I don't know, just where his contract is. I'm pretty sure he only has 1 year left, but we still have Damar Hamlin and Josh Thomas in the fold. So I'm not really looking at this safety class and thinking we need to go and spend a pick on it. If we keep all of our picks, I would have no problem using a 7th rounder on one and seeing if they stick. But I'm not really looking at anyone thinking we need to go get that guy just with the way our roster is built. That being said, I really like Brian Cook out of Cincinnati. I think he's a really versatile safety. He's being mocked in that early day 3 area of the draft. I just really like his game. He's very physical. He's very versatile. He can cover people in man. He can drop into a deep half in zone. He can come up and run fit well and make tackles in space. So I really like his game. He's the safety I know most out of all of these guys just because I charted so much Cincinnati football, but it's too rich for my blood. I'm assuming he's going to go in round 4 or round 5. So I couldn't pull the trigger on that knowing how the Bills roster is built.
Yeah, I'm trying to think if who are our safety crushes last year? Like James Wiggins didn't really work out there in Arizona.
Yeah,
Damar Hamlin was one of them.
Yeah, we like Damar Hamlin. We got
Darren
that
Hall,
one.
but he was
Darren
like
Hall,
kind of like a corner safety hybrid type player.
There's still hope that Darren Hall, flames out.
Caden Stearns, we liked. We like Caden Stearns.
He did well for the Broncos. He came in on their
Yep.
dime sets. He did a lot of stuff, and as like a dime corner, he was good for the Broncos in limited snaps. I felt like we did really good in our safety evaluation last year.
Yeah,
we nailed one of them.
There were a lot of ones we liked too.
I like Tyson Anderson from Toledo. So
that was actually one I was going to talk
people.
about. No, Tyson Anderson's really good. He pops a lot against
let me look into him.
He pops a lot against the competition he plays at Toledo and the MAC and that stuff. But he literally is one of the most athletic, if not the most athletic player on the field in just about every collegiate game he's played in his career. So he's a very interesting prospect. Yeah. And if he falls deep, I would have no problem taking a flyer on that.
All right. Moving on to punters. Let's get punters out of the way. So Matt Ariza is obviously going to be Ariza is going to be the number one guy that everyone wants to talk about at the combine. Jake Camarda from Georgia is also there. Jordan Stout from Penn State is my third guy. So Camarda, Ariza, and Stout are my dudes. Also getting an invite is an NC State guy that I know you will like, Dave, in Trenton Gill, and an Illinois guy in Blake Hayes. I do believe that Ryan Stonehouse of Colorado State was severely ripped off here, not getting an invite. He was just absolutely hitting dingers at the Shrine Bowl. But that's fine. If we can get him as a UDFA, I'm completely okay with that. And then I know you liked Ryan Wright, who also did not get a combine invite.
Of course he didn't.
Well, shit. I like the top 3: Ariza, Camarda, Stout. I made the conversation. I made the comment on Twitter today in response to one of Chris Jenke's. Go get your Tyler Bass of punters. Use a 6th-round pick on a punter. I don't care. We have so many late-round picks. Many of them aren't likely to make the team. You saw Jack Anderson leave. You saw Rashad Wildgoose leave. Go take a punter who will be your punter for 4 years at least, maybe more if you could sign to a second contract. Camarda is an NFL punter. Stout is an NFL punter. Ariza is clearly got some really high ceiling. He probably could go in the 4th round of this draft. So it's going to be really interesting. Anyone got any punter takes? Anyone want to talk punter?
I mean, I Trenton Gill, man, of course. 6'4", 220 as a punter. He's the all-time NC State career leader in punting average. What else can I say about Trenton Gill? Let's see. He wears number 99 as a punter. I mean, come on.
Sounds like
that's allowed in the NFL now too.
Sounds like what? What'd you say?
He's allowed to do that.
Sounds like Turner Gill, former UB head coach. Nebraska,
And
great.
NC State punted a lot this year because they were not very good. He punted, I think, at least like 65 times this year, which is not very good.
We didn't actually. I honestly think that whenever we say his name, your boy Lettuce just hears punt god. Like he just hears punt. Like whenever we actually say the name Matarazzi, he just hears punt god. All right. Before we head out, we're gonna do a snake draft tonight, boys. We're gonna snake draft a little bit here.
3 players.
Yeah,
3 players.
Okay.
Who gets first pick?
Why don't we just do the reverse of what we did last time?
What did we do last time?
I think Kendall was first and you were last.
Oh, so I get to go first?
I think you're right. Yeah.
All right. I guess I'll take the first pick here.
Tilt just likes being in the middle.
I mean, I'm in the middle on my takes anyway, so I might as well be in the middle of my picks.
I'm gonna go fine. I'm gonna lead things right off here. I'm gonna go with Travis Jones from UConn. He had a big Senior Bowl week. I want to see how he tests. He's a guy where my thought on Travis Jones right now is it's weird, right? So do I want him to have a bad combine so he can slip to 57? Or if he has a bad combine, do I really want a defensive tackle from UConn? Like, so I feel like right now, if the Buffalo Bills wanted Travis Jones, they'd either have to trade back in the first round or they'd have to trade up in the second round. I don't know. I think Travis Jones kind of falls in that nowhere land for the Buffalo Bills right now. So I really want to see how does Travis Jones work his way into the first round? Does he work his way down in the second round? Where does Travis Jones fall? I think his tape is good, but he comes from UConn. He had a big week at the Senior Bowl. I think his combine is going to have a lot to say with where Travis Jones gets drafted. So he's going to be number 1 on my watch list.
Yeah. And I'm gonna pick a less obvious name as well, just because like everyone's gonna be interested in what Devontae Wyatt does and what the top corners do. I'm interested in what Cameron Thomas does.
Damn it, that was gonna be my second pick.
I really want to know how he tests. He's again that size guy that the Bills have kind of coveted, we'll say, over the last several sort of edge players they've drafted. And obviously coming from San Diego State, we know there's a couple guys from San Diego State we like this year, including your guy Bellinger. But Cameron Thomas, right, at edge, I think he is a wild card edge player that maybe he's sitting maybe in the second, third-ish round right now. Could he vault himself up as that power guy into the first round, like Kendall was saying?
He's such a weird guy.
Peyton Turner made his way up into the first round last year from Houston, and I think no one thought that could happen.
I think the edge depth is so.
You're right. That's true. I will say that.
But
could he help himself out and be like
he's
a guy
like 30s? He's like
it?
30s on people's board. I don't see him getting out of the second round. I think people are going to put on that tape and they're just going to see the relentless effort that he plays with, and they're just going to fall in love.
If he has a bad combine, though, he could absolutely fall late into the second round.
But could he make his way
Mountain West competition? I think he could get himself up to first because of the hustle and the motor on tape,
and that's why I'm interested to see how he does.
I agree.
I want to compare his measurables to Max Crosby because I really do think he's a Max Crosby type of player who
I guarantee you once the RAS score gets filled out, it'll say comparison to Max Crosby. I've heard that a lot. Yeah.
All right, Kendall, take 2.
Oh God.
Don't steal any more of my guys. I only put like 5 guys on my list and I wasn't prepared for this.
I wanted to go with like Carl Aftis or Thomas for the same reason that you did, Tilt, but I think I'm gonna go with Kaiir Gordon. I think Kaiir Gordon, I'm very, very interested to see how he tests. I think he's probably of those top 6 guys. I think he's the biggest projection and he has the highest ceiling maybe of all those top 6 guys because he is good. He has good tape, but I think people are really projecting how amazing his athleticism is. So I really want to see how good it is at the combine relative to the rest of the guys at the position. And I would feel a lot more comfortable about taking him at 25 if he has a really stellar combine. So I already feel comfortable with it, but I'd feel really comfortable with it if he shows out at the combine. So give me all of Kaiir Gordon. I want to see what he does.
All right.
You get 2 picks here, man.
Oh dear God. I wasn't ready for this. I'm going to go with Fedarian Mathis.
There it is. I like
because Phidarian Mathis wasn't overly athletic on tape, but my God, he has the best motor of any interior defensive lineman I've scouted so far this year. He never quits. He doesn't stop. He's got good hand usage, but I want to see if all of that technical ability can be paired with sufficient athleticism. And hey, if it isn't even sufficient athleticism, maybe he'll drop it to the Bills in round 3. So I think it's a win-win no matter what happens. I think I'd feel better about taking him in round 2 if he tests really well. And if he tests poorly, then he gets to fall to us in round 3 at a really, really high value. So I'm interested to see how Phidarian Mathis does at the combine.
All right, Dave, what do you got going here?
Yeah, I mean, look, I can't have texted you guys all day about this guy and not put him on my list. Monteric Brown, let's see how he does. It's important. I think the combine's really important for him. And I think his tape is pretty good. I mean, Kendall would know better than me, I think, after looking some of his tape today. But I think his on-field, IQ and his on-field sort of versatility is there. But is he going to test well in things like the 40 and
Right.
speed and agility? That's where I think he can really help himself, kind of put himself maybe back up into that day 2, we'll call it, group. Or, I think right now he's probably sitting outside that group right now, but I think he can work himself into day 2 if he tests well. So I'm very interested to see what Monteric Brown does at the combine.
All right. I've been losing some of these, and these little lists we put out, I've been getting shit kicked on every.
I'm gonna get shit kicked on this because I'm just picking guys I like at this point. I mean,
so I wanted to go Cameron Thomas my second pick. Can't do that now. Then I wanted to go. Then I was thinking Josh Pascal from Kentucky. Then I was like, no, it's not sexy enough. I'm not going to win on the list of on the Twitter list.
So petty.
I'm petty son of a bitch. And then I was going to go with Kingsley and Agbury, but again, I want to win. So here's a guy who I legitimately think won't be in play, but should be in play for pick number 25. He's going to blow up the combine. I want to see how big he blows up the combine. And then once he does, I want to see people go back to his tape and really see if we can find a place for him. 6'3", 255 pounds, 33-inch arms. Boye Mafe from Minnesota. I am color me intrigued. I know he might not fit the mold of a typical Buffalo Bills pass rusher, but when you got guys like Gregory Rousseau and you guys got guys like Boogie Bashaw, I'm looking for that changeup. And by changeup, I mean like a superhuman fastball. And that is Boye Mafe. So give me Boye Mafe here. He's a guy who really intrigues me. As early as pick 25, I don't care what anyone says.
All right.
I think it's fair if he tests well enough. I think he's in play at 25.
Oh, I get to pick again, don't I? That's how this thing works. I'm going to go with Josh Williams from Fayetteville State. Again, a guy who gives me Kevin Johnson vibes. I'm really interested to see how he tests. I think his 40 will be huge and some of his agility numbers will be huge. Just having a guy who can get physical and aggressive at the line of scrimmage, got long arms, and a guy who maybe if he gets beat can turn and run with guys and can keep up. It'll allow our corners to play a little bit more physical, aggressive at the line of scrimmage, which can maybe turn some of those pressures into sacks. That's the type of cornerback I'm looking for. So I think Josh Williams' testing numbers will go a long way to figuring out if he's that ball of clay that you could maybe turn into that. Tariq Woolen is another guy, but I'm just not as high on Tariq Woolen as some other people are.
I am interested to see how he tests, though.
Yeah. While you guys are going back, I'm going to actually pull up Tariq Woolen's blurb from the Bruce Feldman's freak list because it's insane.
Exactly. Till it's you, right?
I'm gonna go a little bit out of left field here. Yeah, I'm gonna go a little bit out of left field here, and go with a position that no one really expects the Bills to take early on. But I'm gonna go with Beavers, Darian Beavers. I think that it'll be interesting to see how Kendall, like you said, I mean, he's got the burst, the first step burst. How is he going to test in the strength, like on the bench? How many reps is he going to do? And how is he going to do in the agility drills is going to be interesting because we know he's probably going to do from a linebacker standpoint or an edge standpoint or whatever, however you want to classify him. He's probably going to do fairly well in the 40 compared to his peers. but how is he going to do in the agility and the strength is going to be interesting. I had a lot of guys on that I was considering here. I was even considering John Booker. I was considering. I'll just throw out a couple other names I was considering just because it's fun to do. Booker was a guy I'm interested in seeing and the interior defensive line, how he tests. And obviously Alontae Taylor, I'm interested to see how he tests as well. So just a couple other names I'm really interested to see.
All right, Kendall, you're up here. Final pick. You might be able to clinch it here.
I know, really. That's the thing. Like, I want to sell out for the win, but I also want to be true to myself. And
you got a decision to make here.
I know, right? I could win this thing with a nice, sexy pick, but I kind of want to stay true to myself. I really want to know what Alex Wright does. When you see a guy with that much production, when you're looking at advanced metrics and he's top 5 in the class relative to all these amazing edge rushers, but he's playing at UAB, with definitely some inferior competition relative to these other guys. I want to know how he's going to test relative to those guys with better competition. So I'm not necessarily going to use the combine and his numbers from the combine to compare him to his peers and make the final story for him, but it is part of the puzzle in me piecing together who Alex Wright is and if he's capable of being as productive or close to as productive as he was in college for what he can be at the next level. So yeah, give me Alex Wright, edge from UAB. I think the Bills they're going to pass on edge early, and I think they're going to look to add to it a little bit later in the draft, and I think he's a sneaky one. So, yeah, give me Alex Wright. I'm very intrigued to see how he does.
All right, some people have been asking about Tariq Woolen, so I'm going to read, again, Bruce Feldman, his freak list comes out before every college football season, so this was published in about August of last year. Tariq Woolen, UTSA cornerback. The school's mascot is the Roadrunner, but after hearing how fast this guy is, it probably could use him as its logo. Woolen converted from wideout after struggling with catching the ball consistently, but he really brought into the position switch. He has an intriguing combo of length and elite athleticism. He's 6'4", 204 pounds, and has also broad jumped 11.5 and run a laser timed 4.34 40. He topped out at 23.33 miles per hour on the GPS, and his flying 10-yard time is 0.90 seconds. So that is Tariq Woolen's sort of mock-up here from Bruce Feldman. Again, subscribe to The Athletic. You can go through and read all of these. Some other guys from the combine who are maybe in the top 25 of Bruce Feldman's freak list. Aiden Hutchinson comes in at number 2. Kyle Hamilton, number 3. Devontae Wyatt, number 4. Tariq Woolen was number 6. George Karlaftis was number 7. Jeffrey Gunter was number 8. Derek Stingley Jr. was number 9. Tyler, that's offense. Scrolling through here, seeing if we have it. Travis Jones is 13. Wow. Some of Travis Jones.
We need to pick like a joint, like
Jones?
air raid hour freak guy.
Yeah.
We all agree on, like we want to watch as like our honorable mention.
Yeah, maybe. But look at some of Travis Jones here. Benches 455 and has done 32 reps at 225. He hang cleans 405 and squats 615. His vertical is 28 and a half inches.
Can we make
and
him
his shuttle
the
time.
consensus?
Steve already picked him.
There we go. He's got
damn it.
He's got a shuttle time of 4.57. Derek Brown had was almost the exact same weight and ran it at a 4.79. Whew. Yeah. Oof. 82.5 inch wingspan.
That guy's going to get in the
7.41 in the 3 cone.
What I want to see is what his weight is relative to Jordan Davis and who has the better 10-yard split and who has the better 40-yard dash. I know the 40-yard dash doesn't mean squat for one techs, but those two guys play with better range than you would expect for one techs. And obviously the 10-yard split is supremely important for defensive linemen. So I want to see how those two relate to each other with weight and 10-yard split. I
didn't do this on purpose, but Boye Mafe 17 on Bruce Feldman's freak list. Let's see who else we got in the top 25. Majai Sanders comes in at 20. Damian Pierce came in at 21 for offense, by the way. Leo Chanel comes in at 22, the Wisconsin inside linebacker. Looking to see if we have any other ones here. Connor Christian Harris from Alabama comes in at 27. I know that there was at some point we're going to get to Trent McDuffie and Kyler Gordon. Brandon Smith from Penn State comes in at 32. Yeah, that's about it. I know coming up here somewhere in the top 50 was Kyler. There we go. 39 is Kyler Gordon and 40 is his teammate Trent McDuffie. So rounding out the top 40 with a couple of other ones. So ton of freaks in this draft that are going to blow up the combine. Should be super interesting. That stat about Travis Jones, comparing his split to Derek Brown's is rather intriguing. So his RAS is going to be something to watch out for. So solid show, gentlemen. Do we have any jabronis? I have a jabroni actually. Let me I
don't know.
Let me pull it up here. You guys can think while I play this clip.
Jabroni, you are 3 seconds away. And The Rock means 3 seconds away from The Rock to lay the smack down on your candy ass.
Yeah, I can't stop you though. You keep using this word jabroni, and it's awesome.
My jabroni of the week goes to whoever makes the list for the NFL Combine, because holy shit. What the hell are Johnny Johnson and Devin Williams from Oregon doing out there when there are so many other wide receivers? I'm looking at my wide who didn't get an invite here. Samari Toure, who probably could have ran in the 4.2s. The Nebraska wide receiver didn't get an invite. Jaquez Ezzard didn't get an invite. Devin Tompkins, my man from Utah State, didn't get a damn invite. But yeah, you got Slade Bolden, you got Devin Williams, you got Johnny Johnson. Give me a fucking break. Give me a Makai Polk. Give me a break. Whoever made and there's a couple other positions. I'm not going to dive too deep into it, but some of the people who make up the NFL Combine list, quarterbacks, I had a problem with too. Left some really darn good prospects out of Indianapolis this year, and brought in a lot of guys where it's like, what the fuck are they doing here? Like, why are they there? Why are they there? I just don't know.
That's a good segue into what my jabroni of the week, and it's something that's been weighing on me. And my jabroni of the week is myself this week.
Ooh.
And I know, Steve, you've done this. You've done this to yourself once before, but I went on a tangent on Monday about freaking Tariq Glass, and he's not even at the combine. And we were supposed to be previewing guys that were at the combine on offense, and I'm just going on and on about Tariq Glass, and then
Akil Glass.
It's like freaking saying his name wrong because I'm so frustrated about it. It's Akil Glass, and then I go on and on about it, and then Steve at the end goes like, "Well, that's great, but he's not at the combine." And I'm like,
I do think he's the one guy where I think he was at the HBCU combine, he was at the NFLPA Bowl. I think the scouts had just seen enough, but it's still like Akil Glass is sitting at home when, like, no offense, like I'm looking like Brock Purdy. Why is Brock Purdy there? Why is De'Aaron King there? like, are you kidding me? Like, De'Aaron King belongs there, but Akil Glass doesn't. Give me a break.
Yeah. So
De'Aaron King is like legit 5'7".
I still can't get his name right. Who was the guy that measured in today height wise, like 3 inches shorter than?
It was Wandale, I think.
Oh, was it Wandale?
I know at the Senior Bowl, Danny Gray was listed on SMU's website as 6'2" and measured in at like 5'10".
Every team does it. Every team does it. For some players, it means a lot. For others, it doesn't. Like with Wandale specifically, like you can see him on tape. He's diminutive. Like it wasn't a surprise, and it doesn't take away from his game. It's not like the dude was going up like 50.
Him running a 4.3. I didn't think he was going to run the 4.3s.
What I will say, you know what? I'll give myself jabroni of the week too. I tweeted back at you when you said that, Judge, and I said, "Oh yeah, watch out! I think he still has some gas left in the tank. He doesn't even go for a second try. He was so happy what? I hang my hat on 4.38, and here I am saying he can do better than that. He
doesn't even go.
He's fine with it.
Some people were saying Thornton had a bad jump and ran a 4.21. So like
he stumbled a little bit. He had a little stumble in there. There was slight.
When do the unofficial times become official? I don't even know when that is, but
follow Math Bomb.
All right, so We got 30 more seconds till we're exactly until we're at exactly 1:45 here. So it's a great time. Thank you so much for everyone who joined us tonight. Again, smash that like button before you go. We're going to end up going over 1:45, but smash that like button before you go. If you're watching this on demand, kudos to you for making it this far. And leave a comment in the comment section. We're going to be looking over this over the course of the weekend, making sure that if you leave a comment, we will try our best to respond to it. And if you are listening, our podcast numbers have been ridiculous lately, gentlemen. So thank you for those who are subscribing on Apple, who are listening on Spotify, etc. I know we were having some Spotify glitches, and I had like 6 people DM me telling me about our Spotify glitches. I'm surprised 6 people listen to us on Spotify. So I was really happy about that. So leave us a review on whatever podcasting network. The podcasting numbers are insane. So thank you guys so much to anyone who listens. You guys are truly the third host. You drive this show. The comment section is always fire. So thank you guys so much. And until next time, go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Are we having fun yet?